Before we start the show, I must ask you, nay, implore you, to vote for us in Madison Magazine's Best of Madison 2024 contest. Y'all, the City Cast Madison podcast and our newsletter Madison Minutes are up again for Best Local Podcast and Best Local News Website. Your nominations are what got us this far. Let's make it official and vote. You have until June 30th. Please don't put this off. Go to our show notes for a link now, and let's make podcast history together. Today on City Cast Madison. It's the Friday News Roundup. This week, I'm joined by City Cast Madison's Hayley Sperling and Ava Wojnowski. 36 Dane County food pantries issued a letter saying they're in dire financial straits and need help. The Madison School District added 2 hefty tax referendum questions to the November ballot. A leaked Wisconsin Supreme Court order reveals the court's plans to hear a case that could strengthen abortion rights. Plus, 2 former Badgers will advance as warriors in a hit network TV show. It's Friday, June 28th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Welcome to the Friday News Roundup. So before we dive into our group chat of the week's news, we invited a special guest. We know food prices are up. We're all feeling the squeeze, including our area food pantries. This Tuesday, a coalition of 36 Dane County food pantries released a letter to the community. And the headline is Dane County, we need your help. Joining us now is the executive director of WayForward Resources, Ellen Carlson. Ellen, hello.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, and we're so grateful that you came on to tell us about what's going on. So what prompted this letter?
We have been seeing an incredible increase in food insecurity in the community, which we see through people coming to the food pantry. And through our work with all the other food pantries in Dane County, we just know that everyone is seeing the same thing. And it's super important that we get the word out because we know that people in our community will want to help if they know that this is happening. So it was just a really important thing to get the word out.
Mm-hmm. And just briefly, for folks who might not be familiar, can you tell us who y'all are at WayForward Resources and what you personally have been experiencing around need and seeing?
So WayForward Resources is an organization that creates food and housing security in our community. One of the main ways that we do the food side of things is that we have a food pantry that serves people throughout Dane County, primarily people from the west side of Madison and Middleton, Cross Plains area use the resource, but we do work with people all throughout the city.
And what are you seeing, like specifically, like do you have any specifics about like numbers or what's different now?
Yeah, so at our food pantry specifically, over the last 2 years, we've seen almost a 300% increase in people needing to use our services. It's been a steady increase really over the last 2 years as the pandemic area resources went away. I think it really highlighted a lot of other things that are really squeezing people's budgets. So, housing prices, we have, some of the highest rental increases in the country. You combine all of that with the raising prices in food, all of those things are just squeezing people's budgets. Their incomes are not going up as fast as these other pieces. And so people use the food pantry as their way of stretching their budgets and making sure that they're not making choices like, should I buy our medications? Who in the house should I feed? Do I pay my bills? The food pantries are there as that basic resource to be the thing that people can count on in our community so that they have what they need.
Mm-hmm. And you said, in terms of pandemic funding, most of that has dried up. And it kind of, that situation mirrors what's happening on our city level around budget. We've been talking a lot about that on the show, where pandemic resources once were, those funds have dried up and the need is still there. Can you talk about what other Madison area folks signed on to this letter?
knowing that this was such a need for us and knowing that it is for everyone else too, and wanting to make sure that resource, that food pantry shelves are full for people when they come to the food pantry. We knew that every other food pantry in Dane County was experiencing the exact same thing. So we reached out and asked people if they would be interested in doing this. So kind of the 6 largest food pantries in Dane County came together and crafted this open letter to the community, and then asked all the other food pantries in Dane County if they were interested in signing. And Bianca, I have to tell you, it was like so fast. It's like we sent the letter out and food pantries were like, we're on board. So we had 36 area food pantries signed the letter. And then we reached out to the local public officials and community leaders, all people who really care that people in our communities have their basic needs met. And they were all quick to say, yeah, we want to come and join you at this press conference and be with you. We were just really grateful for that because we really believe that food pantries cannot do this alone. We are this basic resource for people. And also we don't have access to big, federal resources or anything like that to fill our shelves. It's really a community effort to make sure that we have that food. We have great food bank partners, and they're doing everything they can to keep up with the demand as well. They're seeing it throughout their entire service areas. This is an issue that's happening really all throughout the state, but we're feeling it really acutely in Dane County.
Yeah, I saw some of the signers: Goodman Community Center, St. Vincent de Paul, Madison, the River Food Pantry.
Yep, all of those main food pantries are seeing this same increase.
And so, maybe the ask is transparent, but what can be done? Like, how can people help?
Yeah, I think there's things on a lot of levels. So we talk a lot about what we're doing right now to meet this immediate need, because while we try and engage people at higher levels to create bigger solutions, people still are coming to the food pantry and they still need the food. So we talk a lot about how we can this increasing community awareness. We're really hoping will encourage people to make donations to their local food pantries, whether it's financial or food resources. Maybe they have time. Maybe they, have the ability to volunteer. Paper bags. We always need paper and plastic bags, right? Because people are leaving the food pantries with groceries like they would at a grocery store. So if we don't have to buy those, it also saves money. So anything that people can do right now to support their local food pantries is absolutely needed. We're also hoping to continue to engage people on this larger level of conversation. And as food pantries say, we see the need, we're talking with the people who are using our resources, we're at the ground level, and we want to be able to bring this conversation to people who can make bigger policy changes or bigger, countywide, statewide conversations about how it is that we're going to make sure people have the food that they need.
Well, Ellen, I hope folks are listening. Is there, an easy place for how folks can find their local food pantry? Or
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. So for us, if you live over on the west side and you want to get involved, WayForwardResources.org. But also, I recommend people calling United Way 211. If you call them, they will let you know what the food pantries are in your area. So if you need help or you want to give help, right, we're all a community working together. So that United Way 211 is a great place to call, and they can get you where you need to go.
Amazing. Ellen, thank you so much for joining us for our Friday News Roundup. We really appreciate the update, and, I hope it makes a difference.
Awesome. Thank you, Bianca.
All right. Well, before we dive into any more news, let's take a quick break. So you're listening to City Cast Madison. You clearly care about what's happening in our city and have fantastic taste in podcasts. I've got a recommendation for another local news podcast you gotta check out. It's called 365 Amplified. Every week, the award-winning reporting team behind Madison 365 digs into their most important stories from the week, and they focus on the greater Madison communities of color, with stories and perspectives you likely won't hear from many other mainstream outlets. They have on community leaders, lawmakers, artists, and many more for candid conversations. They drop new episodes every Friday at madison365.org/amplified. And you can also search 365 Amplified wherever you're listening to this show right now.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, CEO of City Cast. Or, as I can say now, thanks to a few weeks with Babbel, hola, soy David Plotz, el jefe de City Cast. What if in 2024 you got a little bit better every day? When you're learning a new language with Babbel, that's exactly what you're doing. And if Babbel can help me start speaking a new language in just 3 weeks, imagine what you could do in a full year. I got started with Babbel because I realized that my girlfriend, who's a native Spanish speaker, and my son, who's in AP Spanish, were conspiring against me, or I thought they were conspiring against me in Spanish. I wanted to know what they were talking about. And now, thanks to literally just a few weeks of Babbel, I'm starting to be able to eavesdrop. It is rare that something so fun and simple, and Babbel is super fun and very simple, is also so useful. So here's a special limited time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for CityCast listeners at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
With me today is the leader of this here podcast, Hayley Sperling. What's good?
Hello, Bianca. It's all good.
Yes. And our interim newsletter czar, Ava Wojnowski. Hey, girl, hey.
Hey.
Okay, so funds are needed. And we are talking about our school district now.
Yeah. So the Madison Metropolitan School District has a pretty big ask for voters this November. Actually, it's going to be 2 big asks, to be specific. Earlier this week, the Madison School Board unanimously agreed to add 2 tax referendum questions on the November 5th ballots. The first of which will ask voters to approve $100 million over the next 4 school years to increase spending on staff and education programs. So like AKA the school's operating budget. The second question asks for $507 million to renovate or replace several aging school buildings that are pretty desperately needed because according to the district, Madison's average school is over 60 years old, which is a pretty big yikes when we're talking about literally training and teaching the minds of tomorrow. In practice, what this looks like, if the referendums are approved, homeowners will see an average increase of more than $1,300 on their property tax bills by 2028, according to Cap Times. And if that feels like a lot, it's kind of because it is. According to the nonpartisan Wisconsin Policy Forum, these referendums are, quote, unprecedented in size and scope in district history, unquote. But as it stands right now, the district is facing a multi-million-dollar shortfall for the next fiscal year. So again, like we said, we need the funds. And historically, when it comes to voting on these referendums, voters have overwhelmingly always approved when the district asks for money. Again, according to the Wisconsin Policy Forum, Madison voters have approved 7 of the 8 last referendums to fund schools since 1999, and the last rejection was in 2005. And if you guys recall, we also just approved hundreds of millions of dollars in referendum spending back in 2020. But recently, the trend of approving school board referendum has kind of shifted across the state. So it's kind of an interesting situation that the school board is in. We need the money, the schools need the facilities, and also the teachers need to get paid, right? Like, I am all for giving teachers everything and the world and all the more. But what's really interesting about this is that if you'll recall, the city of Madison is also considering a budget referendum for the November ballot. And if that happens, it would be the first time that Madison voters have been asked to consider property tax referendums from both the school district and the city. So could be a potential storm brewing here.
Oh my gosh, the squeeze is so real. We started out this conversation talking about our food pantries and like, oh my God, she said 300% 1.5% increase in the need over the past 2 years. And yet now we're looking at, requests from every corner to pay for our livelihoods, our way of life here in Madison. That's a lot of money. So that's over $500 million that the school is asking for.
It's a lot of money, but also, when you think about it, like thinking about the food pantries as well, so many kids are getting either their only meal of the day or their most nutritious meal of the day from their school, right? So it's important that like they're comfortable in their school buildings and that they have the funds that they need in order to thrive as students.
Speak the truth, Hayley Sperling. Speak the truth.
It's also, Madison specifically, the district serves a lot of like underrepresented communities, much more so than our suburban counterparts, right? So we're taking in a lot of students that genuinely do need the help. So like this money is directly impacting the students and directly impacting the teachers. If these referendums don't pass, the school board will proceed with the budget that they have in place. They've actually passed like a preliminary budget that will take effect on July 1st, but it doesn't do much for the school. So overall, that version of the budget would reduce spending in the school district by about 1.5%, which is it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about a budget that is, almost $600 million, like it is a lot of money, and it still just doesn't fix any sort of the holes or the leaks that we're facing when it comes to upcoming deficits in the operating budget and revenue. So it's really up to voters to kind of like see what the futures of Madison School holds. I'm also very curious too, I know a lot of people were very dismayed by the city's request or potential request for a referendum, right? Like people are like, why don't you just cut this and this and this and whatever? And we don't really have that option for schools, like when it comes to cutting, and we really barely even have the option for the city, but like we don't have the option for schools specifically. So it's just like, we need this money. The kids need this money. The teachers need this money. It's going to be an interesting ballot this November for sure.
Yeah. And I just want to call a little bit more attention to a point you made of how these schools are about 60 years old. I think that like them being this old, I definitely think that's something for people to consider and think about when they are looking at these referendums on the next ballot.
Yeah. And I mean, like there is precedent for Madison voters approving referendums. Like I said, back in 2020, voters pretty much resoundingly approved more than $300 million for facility updates. And that went to renovations at 5 different high schools and the building of Southside Elementary School. So now we want to kind of keep that trend, right? Like we've got a lot of great high schools. Southside Elementary School is this brand new shining star. Never mind the administrative problems that they're facing right now, but like the building itself is really great. And now they really need to focus on all of these other school buildings that need the help so desperately. So it's definitely going to be a story to watch. It's definitely going to be interesting. I mean, I know the teachers are fighting for their money. They're always fighting for their money. And my question is, how do we get to a place that's sustainable? I'm not sure. And I think that our new superintendent, Joe Gothard, like he's got his work cut out for him.
Thinking about what you said, one of the most interesting components of this situation is that our city and our schools are asking for more money. And we did talk to our city's budget director and the Madison Common Council's president. And I remember at least one of them, something stood out from them saying, like, just this much of your money goes to Madison schools. So how this is going to play out as they hopefully scarcity mindset doesn't win out, but there is scarcity at this moment. So
100%.
Yes, definitely we'll keep tracking that story. Our budgets are truly top of mind for everyone. Our school budget, our city budget. And another issue that's top of mind is abortion. And a pretty big story dropped Wednesday from our friends over at Wisconsin Watch. Reporter Jack Kelly, who's been on the show, his piece says that they were leaked a draft order about an upcoming case for the Supreme Court to hear. And it's on abortion. And it could have a pretty big influence on what abortion protections look like for Wisconsin residents. The case the court is to hear is and this is according to the leaked draft order, a lawsuit filed by Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin that asked the court to declare that access to abortion is a right protected by the state constitution. So this is the big sauce. This is what, everyone's been paying attention to. And there is a case in play. So the draft order also shows, by the way, that the court is denying an effort from a coalition from anti-abortion groups, including Wisconsin Right to Life, Wisconsin Family Action, and Pro-Life Wisconsin, to even intervene in the case. So what this case might mean, an opportunity for the 4 liberal court justices to issue a possibly pretty broad ruling that allows this, and this is what the reporting said, to create sweeping protections for abortion for Wisconsin residents. And this is a leak, right? So the head of the court has spoken out and condemned the action and says that all of the justices condemn the action. After the story from Wisconsin Watch was published, Chief Justice Annette Ziegler called for a police investigation into, quote, and the ostensibly leaked draft order. So a little bit of drama there. Not surprising, considering it is at least top 3 issue for the state and heading into the 2024 elections.
It's literally giving me deja vu from back in May 2022. If you guys remember, like when the Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, that draft got leaked to Politico. And I mean, that is what set off, all of this scrambling to codify the rights to abortion and to get people's rights in place. And that what sent Wisconsin into this spiral and abyss of being like, okay, well, now what do we do? Do we fall back onto this law that was created in 1849? Or like, do we keep things moving towards the modern day, right? So it's this weird sense of deja vu, but also like, I guess a little bit more hopeful because, we do have a liberal majority on the court. The odds that this protection goes through could be very high. And that could make Wisconsin kind of a new safe haven for anyone seeking an abortion, which is just, as we've talked about in so many different ways and times, just critical healthcare for so many different people for so many different reasons. It just goes beyond unwanted pregnancy, but that could fill more than just the 20 minutes that we have on this podcast, right?
Yeah. Something else I wanted to kind of bring attention to that was talked about in the Wisconsin Watch article is how the group Planned Parenthood argues that the Wisconsin Constitution protects both a pregnant woman's rights to have an abortion and a doctor's rights to perform the procedure, but the draft order then defers a decision whether and how to keep these identities of women anonymous. So I think this is another important part that's kind of discussed in the leak and was in that Wisconsin Watch article as well.
This news is either good or bad, depending on which side of the aisle you're on, right? Or where you stand on abortion rights. But the leak is, big. The leak is big.
It's interesting. It's spicy. I feel like we haven't had a good leak in a while in Wisconsin. I don't know. Things are heating up. I'm curious, how this will affect, if anything, November turnout. What is the purpose of the leak here, right? There's always a reason behind it. Back in that 2022 leak, the Dobbs leak, like it drove so many people out to vote. And it just really changed the course of the conversation that we were having about abortion. Also, because it was such a monumental reversal of what we were used to. I don't know. We'll see if this changes anything. We'll see if it catches on. We'll see what happens. But this is another really big story that we're going to be watching here.
It looks like oral arguments in this case likely won't happen until after the court's next term starts in the fall. So that is something to consider as well. We know that the political chessboard here, the pieces, this is not the last move. We've got some other kind of fun news. Let's kick it. There's some kicking in here, our kicker.
Yeah, so something cool that I recently read about on the Cap Times, and this might be a slight little spoiler for those who are American Ninja Warrior fans out there.
Wait, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
You've been warned.
You've been warned. This is me saying it. But 2 folks born in Madison, Nathan and Marquez Green, are going to the semifinals for American Ninja Warrior. They are twin brothers who both went to high school in Madison and also attended the University of Wisconsin-Madison. They were actually both in the Wisconsin track club with me. So little shout out for WTC cows out there. But for those of you who don't know, American Ninja Warrior is a reality TV show that tests people's physical abilities, including activities like climbing, balancing, and more. But to me, the brotherly competition for this is so cool because obviously they're working to the same goal. They both want to be the winner and they're both against each other, but they also have been really feeding off each other's energy and cheering one another on. And this actually is not their first time on the show. They both competed in 2019, but neither of them won. And they talk a lot about how they've grown a lot since their debut in 2019 and how they feel that this has allowed them to get further than last time. So July 22nd is when this episode will air on NBC to see if they make it to the finals. So super interested to see if one brother prevails, if they both make it, kind of how that brotherly competition will play out. But definitely something cool for some Madison folks out there.
I love it. Imagine the drama, like if one makes it and the other one doesn't. Like, oh, devastating.
I hate sibling rivalry. I don't know why I would hate it.
I think it keeps things fun. It keeps things spicy. But also, like American Ninja Warrior, it's never that show that I purposely turn on, being fully transparent. But like if it's on, I'm fully going to watch it. And I'm like fully invested. Like the sheer like showcase of athleticism that all of these competitors show, like shout out to them for like literally even making it this far. That's just a huge testament literally to how insane and how fit these guys must be. And again, another low-key flex from Ava being on the track club with them. Like that's so cool.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do like a City Cast Ninja Warrior amongst all the cities and get everyone to do something wild. That'd be fun.
A little friendly competition there.
Yes.
Exactly.
I hate competition. I'm so lame. But one of my actual life goals is to do a backflip. So we're gonna flip out of this Friday news roundup. Man, y'all are such a pleasure. Thanks for rounding up the news with me this week. I can't thank you enough. Hayley Sperling, thank you.
Of course, happy to do it.
And Ava Wojnowski, thank you so much.
Thanks, Bianca.
And before we go, wake me up. Y'all, today through Sunday is your last chance to vote for us in this year's Madison Magazine Best of Madison competition. The voting ends June 30th, this Sunday. So please don't wait. If you are Team City Cast Madison podcast and newsletter Madison Minutes aficionados, vote for us today. Thank you for your nominations, and we hope to get to celebrate with you all after. That's all for today here on City Cast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. We're produced by Phil Circus, Joyce Tang, and Elizabeth Kama. Hayley Sperling is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Ava Wojnowski is our interim newsletter editor. Don't forget, you can always get more news delivered right to your inbox in the morning by subscribing to Madison Minutes. And if you enjoyed our show today, why not share this podcast episode with the new superintendent, Joe Gothard? We'd love to talk to him on the show. Joe, if you're listening, please get back to us. All right, see you back here Monday morning with more news from around the city. Ciao.